Meow. How you doing? I'm Cat Danny. Gonna try to not do any bad character jokes for a few more episodes after this week.
So Thundercats won't be next week.
Oh, that's a good idea.
The Cat Saga.
You're right. And now I don't know what kind of opening bit I'm gonna have for Lion-O. I just used my A material for Sahara. Coming at you today on Sadie Hawkins Pod.
So I'll ask one thing, just one thing of you. Don't ever turn me loose, even when I turn my back.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sadie Hawkins Pod.
Hi. I haven't been trying hard. You know what? I really got to think about the bits. I got to think about the opening bits like a couple days before. We can't be. Sometimes we've hit on gold with nothing at the table, and then we've magically hit on gold. But for the last, I feel like
you're in charge of the opening bits, Dan.
You should be in charge of the opening bits.
I'm in charge of the engineering. I mean,
you're
sorry,
so clever.
Sorry. April's in charge of the engineering. I'm producing.
Come on, you're so clever with your Connor New Daddy joke. Yes, that's right. I'm digging that up again. Digging it up just to bury again.
Which to bury, us or the Connor New Daddy?
Which to bury, us or our relationship, because I keep bringing up these things that you...
We've already gone to such a dark place.
Well,
where's there left to go?
That's
in this
fitting, because
episode?
this week we're talking about what might secretly be one of the darkest Relient K songs.
Yeah.
I mean, not a very well-kept secret, but I got the gist of this song most of my life, but I never really dug into it until 2 hours ago. Like, I read the lyrics for the first time.
Yeah, same. It's so, like it's so emotionally driven. It's so raw and personal. And, like, this is, like, the only Relient K song, I think, that I listen to, and I'm like, oh, I can feel anger in this.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't feel that, like, even in sort of their saddest sort of songs, or their slower songs, you still feel this, like, overarching sense of hopefulness. And you don't get that here. This is just like very much like a shout it out. We're in the anger stage of a breakup.
Right. This is the end of the second act. Well, before we get into that, I do want to try to clear up some more voicemails because we've been sitting on so many.
Let's do it.
So here is Daniel from March 15th.
So guys, it's Daniel. Just had some thoughts about something you guys were talking about the song Collapsible Love.
That is so fitting. That is so fitting to discuss this week, and I didn't plan it this way. But this week, the day before this episode came out, we, over on Patreon.com, kind of closed the chapter on our Collapsible Lung, the song things to do, because all the way back in episode 88, we did the song Collapsible Lung, and I found all of these YouTube reviews of the album from the week that the album came out. And back in episode 88, I said, we'll talk about all these on Patreon. Well, the last 2 months got away from us, so we finally did it this week. It's been on our to-do list. We finally got it done. And here we are. We're wrapping it up even more with this voicemail from Daniel from our Collapsible Lung episode. So I'm excited to finally wrap up this chapter.
I do agree that it's the most simple song on the album Collapsible Lung, or at least one of them. But when Danny said that it's like when the album is like really complicated and all the songs have all these different parts and all this kind of stuff, I'm not sure we're listening to the same album, because like Collapsible Lung as a whole, with maybe the exception of Disaster, is like filled with songs that could not be more simple.
Okay, I remember this. I heard this voicemail back then 2 months ago, but we never got to it on the show. Yeah, I said Collapsible Lung was a really simple song, probably one of the most simple songs, because it's just, I mean, if anything, for the instrumentation, it's just kind of simple sounding chords. I don't know what kind of chords they are, but it sounds very simple kind of melody to my ear, just guitar and drums and everything like that. And I said that all the other songs on the album were very complicated, and I could be wrong if Daniel remembers from his point 2 months ago and when we hear his voicemail, but I didn't mean from a songwriting point of view. I'm sure from a songwriting point of view, most of the songs on the album Collapsible Lung are very simple. If for no other reason than it was written to be an easily, entertaining, easily digested pop album, apart from the fact that Relient K fans, as we learned on our Patreon episode at the time, Relient K fans were so against the idea of this album. It was meant as a pop album to reach a new fan base,
Right.
So that's what I meant. I was talking about the production,
That's
all
what
of
I
these different
assumed you
parts,
meant. Yeah.
all these different putting in the horns and putting in bells and whistles and
Fine tuning
and compressing things and
doing a lot of
noiseless
processing.
loudness wars and all that kind of stuff. I meant from a production standpoint, and a song like the sibling to the song we're talking about this week, Savannah. To go back to Savannah, and when you look at the breakdown video by Mark Lee Townsend, that's a complicated song because it's got literal trash cans being used and all kinds of things, and so many physical objects were involved in that song, but it feels like an organic song. I'm just talking about Collapsible Lung from a production point. Feels like it went through so many different programs and computers, and had so many parts redubbed and dubbed over and redone and probably edited. That's what I meant by Collapsible Lung is complicated. I think Daniel's saying the song parts themselves, probably on paper, are simple, but that's not what I was hinting at 2 months ago.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I just have a different perspective because I played along to the songs and stuff like that, but they're the most they're just really simple, basic songs. They might not be stripped down in the sense of two guitars, bass, and drums like some of their first couple albums were, but in terms of being difficult to pull off live, or the amount of instruments that are on each song or whatever, even down to parts that are played on the song, especially I think if you listen to the drums, everything is really simple. Obviously that's to an extreme on the song Collapsible Lung, where they're just kind of hitting quarter notes over and over again, and that is my one kind of flaw that I can find in that song, is that the last chorus, they maybe could have done something a little bit more complicated to kind of keep it a little less monotonous. But I mean, as a whole, that album I think is just some of the most simple song structures and song parts that they've ever written.
So yeah, we were talking about two different sort of things. I was talking about production.
Yeah.
I wasn't talking about the parts as they were played by the musicians, or the tunes, the melodies, the song structure on paper. It sounds like, if Daniel has done these covers and it's just him, then yeah, it's probably really easy to play.
Anyway, that's just my thoughts on it. I think that album is really simple, and that's what I like about it. I think people these pop songs, and I think they automatically think that must mean that it was overproduced, but I really don't think it was. I feel like they just kind of did what was natural. It might not have been their easiest album to make, because obviously some of the band members weren't super happy with it and kind of left after that. Although maybe it had nothing to do with the album, I don't know. But tweeting back and forth with Josh McCarnigan a little bit about this, but I don't know. I just think it's interesting the reputation that Collapsible Lung has of being a pop album, which is true. It is very poppy, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's complicated or overproduced. If anything, I think that's why it's as simple and stripped down as it is. I don't know. Listen to Lost Boy and Sweeter, and I don't know. I just think they're all really simple songs. Anyway. Bye.
So yeah, I mean, so then Daniel also got to the point of the idea of overproduction. So I wonder, with not being like a good music critic, although that's what I attempt to do every week on this show.
We apologize for it every week.
I'm not
We know nothing about music.
I didn't apologize for
No,
it right
I know
now,
you
and I'm
didn't.
not apologizing. I'm just saying the simple facts. I wonder. I'm learning a lot more. Like aside from just talking about Relient K every week, I've been learning a lot more stuff. I've been arguing with people about ska music online, and I've had to learn more about it, like from different musical points of view that I didn't necessarily understand it from a history point of view. I feel I understand ska from a history point of view really, really well, not just like on my own, but people taught me specifically about it. So I can talk about that stuff, but I'm learning about more music stuff. My point was, I'm wondering now if we in all of us as humanity, when we say overproduced, as I wonder if that's more like, okay, you know what I'm trying to say? In movies, they say good special effects aren't noticed. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I wonder if when people say something is overproduced, it means that there's a lot of production that's too obvious. Because, I mean, like he was saying here, 5 Score is very produced, and I think that this album that we're talking about this week, Forget Not Slow Down, has a lot of production in it. But I wonder now if when people say something is overproduced, it's just like you can hear the seams, basically. You can hear the decisions, the computer clicks. You can hear the Pro Tools clicks. You can tell what they did to fuss budget the song.
Yeah, this is like $30 million VFX that you can tell they spent a lot of money on, to look so amazing. Mm-hmm. And therefore it doesn't feel as seamless and integrated as sort of those more like $2 million VFX that they did in After Effects, but put, a lot more love into it, and it just worked. More time
the
kind
triangle
of worked with it.
Time.
Yeah.
What is it? Time, money, and speed. Time, money, and speed. The triangle of quality. You can only have 2 of those things. So I wonder, so when we all say, when you hear someone criticize something as overproduced, I'm now wondering, does that just mean it wasn't produced perfectly? Because I'm sure you can even say something's overproduced and you're not necessarily saying it's bad production, but you're just saying there's a lot of production and I can tell, I guess. I don't know. What does that mean? I'm sure there's some nerd writer type style video on YouTube where it's like, what does overproduced mean? And where they describe it, where some hipster video essayist on YouTube describes it. Well, thank you, Daniel, for the voicemail. So we're really catching up. Well, I'm sure by next week we'll have caught up on the voicemails. Do you want to do one more? Who do we got? We got a call from Connor New Daddy.
Nice.
And this one goes back to April 15th. So this is only a month ago. This is before Joke Gate. Yeah, this is before New Daddy Gate. But there was something in this voicemail that I saved it for.
Hey, Danny and Jess, just calling back because I started listening to the Final Countdown episode, and it looks like Joel from Australia had the exact same thought I did, called about the same thing.
New Zealand. Excuse me, he's from New Zealand. Yeah, sorry. We said a week or two ago Joel was from Australia, and he's not. He's from New Zealand. Second time I'm correcting it.
There's no way about this. It was you. I know where Joel's from.
So I'm just misleading everybody all the time. And I know he's from New Zealand because we had to mail him his merch for joining the Patreon. Thank you for joining the Patreon.
That's
Joel.
why I know where he's from.
So, yeah, there's that. But I figured since I was calling back in anyway, I'd just say that since I listened to the rest of your Beyond My Escape episodes and everything, every time you talk about how much of a load of bullshit health and wealth theology is, it makes my heart happy. So, yeah, that's all. We share a lot of the same views on a lot of those kinds of things. It makes me happy listening to you guys process through that on the podcast. So, yeah, anyway, that's all. I'll keep listening. Talk to you later, guys. Bye.
So I felt that was an important voicemail for me to play for you, just so you know, Yeah, we don't know a lot about music.
Yeah.
And we don't know a lot about theology.
Right.
But we do a Relient K podcast. And we do get people, we got at least one person calling to thank us on our, view. I wouldn't say our takes, because we don't understand stuff well enough half the time to really have takes. But our views on some of the things that we were taught. And we can only talk about the things we were taught and the things that we see. And Connor appreciates that. I never really know how people feel about our theological takes and stuff. Because, I mean, for sure, over the last year, I feel like in quarantine a lot, just like constantly being online, because what else could you do? But for sure in like the last 2 or 3 years, being plugged into this community of all of these podcasts and Facebook groups and Instagram, where all of these people of this generation that I was connected with, of like youth group kids, and everyone's kind of landed now in their 30s or their 40s, and all have kind of different takes on how they look back. Some people feel very damaged by the church and different takes on things, and some people feel very hurt by like some of the things that were kind of like forced on them philosophically and thought-wise, and like purity rings and all that stuff. I've realized as I've listened to, and other people have come through and realized they still have a strong faith in God, and they have in Christ, and they have very specific beliefs, and they don't necessarily blame like mainstream Christian culture and American viewpoints and conservatism. They still have their God. And it's interesting to see everyone coming out of the end of 2000s, 90s Christian youth group culture, and we've all got these different points of views. But as I've listened to people talk about these things online in all these different formats, I realized that like I really like went through my youth group phase pretty unscathed as far as like religious trauma, right? Like I just look back now and I realize like, my parents were Catholic before I was born, and they became born again like the year I was born. And in Massachusetts, in New England in the 80s, being born again Christian was an entirely different thing in a mostly Catholic geographical region. And I think the type of like mainline conservative, what's now called evangelical culture, has spread across the whole country and into New England. When I go home, I see that more, but it wasn't around when I was a kid as much. And the churches that I went to, where I discovered youth groups exist and Christian punk exists and purity culture exists, like that was like an after school thing for me at the time later on in high school. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't raised in those churches. I found those churches kind of on my own because I went to private schools later, and I was like, oh, this is cool. I like these bands and stuff, and I like going to Soul Fest and all that stuff, but I wasn't like, I didn't live deeply in it, and a lot of this time that I spent there was my choice. Yeah. And I certainly thought things that I look back and was taught things and accepted them that I realize I don't believe now, in terms of like homophobia and views on abortion and stuff like that, and women's rights and things like that. But still, like that was a flash in the pan in terms of my life compared to how I've realized so many other people. And I've always been born again. I was like raised in a Christian church. It just wasn't the kind of Christian church that like had to take over where they felt the need to like take over your whole life and like make you have testaments and only go to the Christian businesses. There was no Christian business list for the region in our church, and you just went to church on Sunday and Wednesday, and that was it. You might have special gatherings and meals and stuff, but it wasn't like, yeah. Yeah,
and I sort of have kind of a similar background, but even less, I guess, sort of structured maybe, that's not quite the word for it, than you, but it's definitely like I was raised sort of in like more accepting, more like open, kind of looser churches. Right. And so it was definitely like we went to church every Sunday. My mom did some stuff with the women's things maybe like once a month or whenever that was. And I started doing some youth group stuff in like middle school, and we did, little like missionary local outreach things. And then in high school, again, it was also like no one was like, Jessica, go to youth group. It was like, I wanted to. I used to be very spiritual growing up, and that as my own choice. It was, except when I was in like elementary school, I hated going to church because I didn't like dressing up because I was a tomboy, and my mom would make me wear like a dress and tights every week, and I hated it. So I was always like, as a kid, I was like, I hate church because I have to get dressed up for it. I love doing the arts and crafts, and I like sitting around and hearing these great stories. That's totally my jam, but I hate getting dressed up for
That's
it.
my jam.
So, yeah, and then it was like, it was always my choice. Like, going to youth group was my choice. There was no one being like, you have to do this or you have to listen to this kind of music. It was like, if my mom happened to be in the Christian bookstore, I would, like, wander around, and if I found something I wanted, I would get it. There was definitely no, like, this is what you have to believe, this is what you have to learn. And I've talked about it before, where the very first time sort of something came up in my youth group that I disagreed with, I was like, yeah, I'm kind of done with this youth group. Like, I was already going to be graduating and going off to college, so it wasn't really a big deal that I just didn't come back for the last few months. So it was, yeah, I definitely have a different way of looking at spirituality, and then I sort of had my own crisis of faith now since then. It's funny because I actually, and this is something I don't believe I've ever brought up before, I wanted to go to seminary when I was younger. I wanted to go to film school, and then after I graduated, I wanted to like get established in like a film career, and then eventually go back to seminary. And that is something that I have like zero desire or intention to do now. But
you're like the opposite of Martin Scorsese, because he was gonna go.
Exactly.
And I don't remember what you call it in the Catholic faith, but he was gonna like he was gonna enter the
priesthood.
The priesthood. Yeah, or work towards it, or if there's something that comes before the priesthood, he was working towards that, and then he gave that up for film instead. So it's funny, you were like, I'm going to go to film school, and then...
Well, I had my big dreams, and then I had my like, those were my S-tier dreams, and then I had like my A-tier dreams.
If you had kept with it, you could be making Kirk Cameron movies today.
Oh my gosh. Oh. Man, what a missed opportunity there.
Well, I think that this kind of fits, because this is a very traumatic song we're talking about this week, Sahara, and to talk about the fact that we don't have like a lot of specific religious trauma. But looking back on my life now and thinking about like all that, that stuff and those conversations I've seen and people who have been hurt by different ways of thinking in Christian mainline churches, I was like, I wasn't hurt by that stuff. But then I think about it, I'm like, but I was very hurt by very traumatized by like my parents in terms of like social problems. But I don't know how much I want to get into that. I've been analyzing it a lot. We've been working on ourselves a lot recently, like mentally, especially after the pandemic, to kind of like get our minds back in place and stuff.
Yeah, we might not know a lot about like the switch from the B chords to the A chords and exactly what Pro Tools thing they used here and there, but you know what? If you're still listening to us, that's not why you come here. That's not why you listen. You listen because this is Dan's and my form of therapy every week.
Yes, this is our therapy. That should be our new slogan for the podcast. This is our therapy. So I just realized like a lot of my like actual like social trauma came from the fact that my parents had no idea like how to give me tools to like interact with people super well. I don't think my parents listen. I don't think anyone who listens. I don't think my sister listens. I can talk about it with them if they need me to. It's not like I blame them for anything, but I'm realizing like the equivalent of religious trauma comes from the fact that like my parents like never taught me how to talk to girls, never like gave me the confidence that it's okay to talk to girls. They never said, you got to be pure and good or whatever. They implied I should do that stuff, but then like it was never a risk because I didn't know how to talk to girls, and there was never like, son, you should, let the girl know you like her. It was like I just was given nothing, and I just clammed up, and I've been so socially awkward, and it's like a lot of the pain, like the worst memories of my childhood come from the fact that like I didn't know how to like be around people, specifically girls or anything, and like so that's just the tip of the iceberg of some stuff we've been working through recently in our personal lives. Yeah. But it ties to this song because this song is about like trauma and like regret and like self-inflicted pain, and also anger and the feeling that something outside of yourself has inflicted pain upon you. It's Relient K's most traumatic song. So I don't even know how much more I want to get into those personal things when they barely specifically tie into it. It's just the song did unlock some like things in me about regrets in life and stuff like that.
This is a bad boyfriend Thiessen song. No, actually, it's a worst boyfriend Thiessen song.
Right? Like, this is, as you kind of hinted at the top of the show when we brought up this song a little early, and I was saying, like, this is like, if Forget Not Slow Down is a story, this is like the end of the second act.
Yeah.
This is like the darkest of the dark songs, and I always thought like it's a fun rocker song. Like, it's not particularly downbeat musically, but when you really, and it's sure he's yelling and stuff, but there's so much like hardcore music and stuff where it's not actually, I'm talking about in the whole world, like there's hardcore music and metal music where it sounds aggressive, but you might look at the lyrics and it's not actually that aggressive or that angry or whatever. This is like sort of the opposite of that. Like, the music just sounds really fast and cool, and he's kind of screaming, but it sounds like he's more passionate. But then you dig into the lyrics and you realize, like, this is the most effed up Relient K song. Like, in some ways, this is more like, well, like, Deathbed is difficult. It's like a difficult to listen to for people such as yourself, but we also learned other people who listen to the show. But that's still a song on the basis of hope. This feels like a song about complete despair.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how many other Relient K songs. It still has those inklings of hope, like hoping someone will get to him first or get to the lion first. We haven't even dug into the lyrics just yet, but hoping someone will get to him first before he dies of thirst. There's that little bit of hope there. There's not complete despair, but it is the most despairing song we've hit upon doing this podcast.
It's definitely just very emotionally raw. It's very personal.
Yeah. So I always understood that we're doing this song this week because two reasons. We were like, well, we did Africa last week, and it's kind of like a tie-in. We could do this because Sahara and the lion and stuff kind of ties in neatly into a 2-week little theme. If we did Lion-O next week, it would be a nice little continued theme. But then the other reason we did it is because when John Schneck tweeted that he was, at the 1981 studios, well, they're not studios, but the 1981 headquarters, and was there with Hoops, and they were practicing, they were kind of like jamming out to Sahara. So if anyone doesn't remember what that sounds like, it sounds like this. Did we play it last week? Maybe we didn't. Did we play the audio of Schneck and Hoops?
I know we talked about it. I can't remember if we inserted it or not.
So here's that audio in case we didn't play it last week. No memory if we did or didn't. And that's it. So it's just 13 seconds of them just kind of practicing that little part of the song. So this is a song that recently got everyone hyped, like people were so excited.
Yeah.
At this point, it's 254 likes on Schneck's tweet, for 40 retweets and 34 replies, with I'm sure lots of replies under those replies. And that reminds me, for other top of the show business, I completely forgot, but we did get this wasn't from Schneck. So somebody reached out to us who was in direct contact with Thiessen about the Machine Gun Kelly song, and they found out that Matt Thiessen did not work on the song at all, that it was just Machine Gun Kelly and the guy from Sleeping with Sirens, who I can never, Kellen something, they just wrote the song. It sounded like Be My Escape. So Matt Thiessen gets a call from his like manager or somebody, and it's like, hey, you're getting a check and writing credit from I don't even know. I don't think the thing said check, actually. It just said you're getting writing credits for this new Machine Gun Kelly song, and that's all there was to it. Like,
Gotcha.
Thiessen didn't know about it until the deal was done or being done.
Gotcha.
So that was cool to get some information about that. But anyway, Sahara. So the song is like hyped right now in the Relient K community. I always was under the impression that this is a big song, and it certainly seems like it. But spoiler warning, I was shocked to find that there's essentially nothing on YouTube about this. There's really
no Lion King FMVs?
Nothing.
What?
No, not only, like, there's so much that could happen and should happen with this song.
What's that cat thing? That young adult cat thing that everybody loves?
Yeah.
Where's that at?
And
Those
that's
things
about
are always dying.
Those things are always dying and having their crowns taken off and stuff. Like, what the heck? No, I was shocked. Like, I remember, like, when we picked this song, I was like, oh, I better start my Sahara research soon because there's probably going to be a lot. Nope. Seriously, there's like 3 or 4 covers, and they're all really bad covers. And I don't mean anyone's effort, but I mean the recording is really bad. I don't know if we're going to play them, because one's a very, very, very awkward person singing directly into their camera vocal cover. Another one is like a band performing with the cameras way too far away. It's some sort of talent show type thing, and you can barely hear it. Like, I was shocked. There's no acoustic covers. There's no anyone attempting anything. And then very one or two or two or three animated AMVs or like people making fan lyric videos. There's nothing like that. And I guess having done this podcast as we do this, in the format that we do this show, I kind of judge the metric of a song's popularity by how much derivative fan work there is around it.
Sure.
And when I don't find any, I'm like shocked, and I'm like, maybe this song, I think this song might have a cult within the Relient K fan community, but I don't think that this song in and of itself is huge, as huge as I thought it was to the overall Relient K fan community. I'm sure a lot of people out there right now listening to this who love Sahara are like, no, I love Sahara. And you've probably had conversations with your friends and you all love Sahara. But I'm just saying, doing my regular research, you know what? This is the first Forget and Not Slow Down song we've done where I came up with this problem, I think. Maybe I'm forgetting one, but
Yeah.
Forget and Not Slow Down is such a huge album, and it's so short when you take out the outros and the interstitials and stuff, that every song should have like a massive amount of fan derivative works, and this one just didn't. I was shocked to find that, because I really do like this song.
It was a really short deep dive as well, although there is like an entire novel written on song meaning.
And there's very, very little on Genius. There's only one specific, which I guess I'll just get into now, but there's only one specific. Did you get it? Did you get the Genius thing?
I saw it.
Well, as long as I'm bringing it up, let's run to it.
We can run over the lyrics while we're here, too.
Okay.
Run them over. We can go over the lyrics while we're here.
Well, it's also like one of Relient K's most gory and violent songs. That's what makes it. It's their most transgressive song, and it's not like super violent, like death rock or something. You know what I mean? But it does have these hints of like gory symbolism that I was kind of shocked when I realized what exactly they were.
Before we get there, just to note that this song features Tim Skipper of House of Heroes, Aaron Gillespie of The Almost, and Matt McDonald of The Classic Crime.
Oh, okay. So the only Genius note, and there's not even like a main Genius note, annotation. Excuse me, I should know better. There's no main annotation for the song overall. There's only one annotation for towards the end of the song. Just take these bones and bring them back to life. And this Genius said, this could possibly be a reference to the story in the Bible of Ezekiel in the desert, whose dry bones were brought back to life. This Bible reference is probable, given Relient K is often characterized as a Christian rock band. Now, I often poo-poo like people who try to put like deep religious symbolism on certain Relient K lyrics, but this is a case where like I totally see that, and that feels valid. Maybe it's the coyness in which this annotator wrote it. Like, they didn't say, obviously this is a reference to the story of Ezekiel, but the fact that they were like at least just presenting it, because so many Genius and song meetings will say, obviously this is a reference to the book of whatever chapter, and then that just immediately makes me think, well, don't tell me obviously, let me decide if it makes sense.
Sorry, I got distracted just thinking about how many cat songs Relient K has.
Oh, there's a ton.
There's so many.
There's Cat,
yeah.
there's Lion-O, there's
Thundercats.
There's the one with the Maine Coon cat, Butter Lettuce Salad, that song. Sleeping. I just want to call it Butter Lettuce Salad. This one, Sahara.
Song. We're at 5.
Let me go to. I have that lyric searching tool. If I can run to that real quick, then I can figure out a few more. I wonder if we have done the main cat songs by this. They also have 2 songs that reference horses as well. They have "May the Horse Be With You," and they have "The Only Thing Worse Than Beating on a Dead Horse Is Breaking Its Legs and Telling It Who's Boss." That's just going to be my thing forever. I'm always going to make up a version of the title of that song. My lyric search tool is giving me guff tonight. Okay, cat. Shoot. You know what? My lyric search tool doesn't work because I forgot the way it's set up. Any word that's in the title of a song, it accidentally thinks it's that word's in every song. It's a Google advanced search that I saved, and in the advanced search is the title of every song. It doesn't work. I can't look up just the word cat. So I'm Googling Relient K cat songs. And again, all I get is the lyrics to the song Cat. So let us know what we're forgetting. There's Lion-O, Lion Wilson, which is an outro to I Am Lion-O, or an intro, kind of about a cat. There's no lyrics in it.
Still counts.
Still counts. Sahara, cat, butter lettuce salad, which is called sleeping to some people. And I guess that's all we can think of right
That's
now.
okay, because I always call Lion-O Thundercats. I'm like, that's the Thundercat song. It's called Thundercats.
The chorus is "I'm Lion-O." That's the chorus, so that's the lyric. That's the name of the song.
That's
Although the chorus is also
not a
Thundercats.
rule. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? Okay.
It's 2 choruses.
Yeah, there's 2 hooks, actually. There's 2 hooks in that song. Man, Relient K. What the heck? 2 hooks in one song? Greedy. Is it the pride? Is that the pride that brought you down? So, I always heard this song, and to be honest, I like this song, but I don't love it. And excluding interlude tracks, this is probably, for me, I hope no one gets mad, because every song on Forget Not Slow Down is a great song. It's a front to back perfect album, but this is just the song that ends up in last place for me. You know what I mean? And it's not for not trying. It's just this. I like every other song on this album more. This is like the rockinest song on the album, obviously, and I guess it kind of fits in the sequencing as we talked about. If you think of this as like the darkest night of the soul for the character of the album, which is Matt Thiessen himself. We know from like every interview about this album, but it's not for me to like be like, oh, this song's rockin' and therefore it's the best. Like I actually like sort of the things like Over It and Therapy, things that are a little like not soft, but things that are a little more.
Those are groovin' songs.
And I like the faster songs in the vein of the first 3 songs, like in songs like Candlelight and Forget Not Slow Down. And stuff like that.
Yeah, this has always been, for an album that I think is a perfect album, this would be the one song previously I would say is like my least favorite. I can definitely look at it and like respect it and really enjoy it for what it is. And this is a song that I definitely have turned around on like recently, sort of like where I kind of turned around on Forget Not Slow Down as a whole around our Savannah episode, because that's when I really started diving into the album and getting really into it. And this would sort of be that one song where occasionally I would skip it just if I was not in the mood for that particular kind of vibe.
Right. This song also came up, speaking of Daniel, when we did Devastation and Reform, and I said Devastation Reform has always felt to me like the heaviest Relient K song. Daniel mentioned a couple other songs. Sorry, I don't remember them all, but he did mention Sahara as a contender to say, here's another song that feels that heavy, but it doesn't feel that as heavy as Devastation and Reform to me. I can't put words to it, even though that's my job as a podcaster. But I would say like Devastation Reform just feels thicker in the guitar sound, and this is very heavy, but it still has that sort of indie rock feel of the rest of the album, and it's the most raucous song on this track list, but it still doesn't feel as heavy to me as Devastation and Reform. But yeah, so I never, like, I got the gist of it. I got the gist of the lyrics my whole life, or as much of my life as Forget Not Slow Down has existed. But I got the metaphors, lion on his side, and obviously, like, lion is laying. There's multiple times where the lyrics kind of invert. It's like the lion on his side. You're lying on your side, and it's a lion, and then later he's lying. I get all the wordplay. But I didn't really get the story. I didn't get the thrust of the story. I got the general sense that, knowing it's a breakup album, that obviously this is some sort of thing like the king of the jungle, like the animal, the lion is a metaphor for a proud animal that feels like the king of its domain, and something has happened where this powerful, what felt like a powerful adult grown animal is now dying. Because then he says, I felt like a cub, you know? So obviously he's relating himself to a powerful figure, in this case a lion being killed. But I never saw all the nuance in terms of, like, the gore in the song. Well, that's what shocked me the most, was like the getting the thoughts beneath his vacant crown being fed on. Well, that means, like, birds are feeding on this cat's brain. And it's not a literal cat. You know, so I don't feel bad thinking, like, this is, like, I don't picture an actual cat in my mind, beneath my non-vacant crown. I don't picture an actual cat. I know it's a metaphor. I know he's talking about himself, but I just never, and like, he's being picked apart by the vultures because he's, like, completely lost his sense of what he had. But I just never thought the words vacant crown and the thoughts are feasted upon. It's like something's eating brains. I was like, this is the only Relient K song I think exists that there's a metaphor for brain eating.
Yeah, so do you want to just go over all the lyrics real quick?
Sure.
Verse 1. Lying on my side, knowing of thirst is how I'll die. Chalk on my tongue. Lying on the night, beneath the dunes is where I lie to block the sun.
Oh, hold real quick. So, two things that are painting a story there. Chalk on my tongue. Like, I just assume, like, his tongue is so dry that it's turned to chalk.
Yeah, you can feel that.
When I hear the phrase chalk on my tongue, before I dug deep into the song, it would make me think of, like, I got chalk on my tongue. Like, you're doing billiards or something, or
right.
You're doing ballet, you're doing the sawhorse, and you chalk up your hands, and you get some on your... I never did ballet. I never did ballet.
Gymnastics.
Oh, you're right. We'll just leave that in. I don't care, whatever. My sister did gymnastics, and I watched, they chalk up their hands and stuff.
Yeah.
It was fun because I was a kid, and I didn't do gymnastics, but, when the moms were at the gymnastics place where my sister went, when the moms were all talking and everyone was done, I would, like, sneak into the foam square pit, like that pit
yes.
of foam squares that the
I
girls
used
would
to do
land in.
gymnastics too.
Yeah.
So yes, I know what you're talking about.
Or, like, jump on the things, and, like, the employees didn't want us doing that,
right.
but they didn't, like, stop us as much as if it was like a Chuck E. Cheese and you had gotten in without, like, paying, or without getting your hand stamped. So I always thought, I'd hear chalk on my tongue, think, ew, gross, chalk on his tongue, but it's like, no, it means his tongue is so dry it has turned to chalk, and that's gross.
I never sussed out what this first verse was. I never have sung along really to this song.
Right.
Like, I've never really, until this week, really looked at the words. I'm like, yeah, lion and his pride, something about the king of beasts bringing him down. Right. Yeah.
And then it's such a quick narrative picture painted. I need to read the line again. Lying on the night beneath the dunes is where I lie to block the sun. So lying on the night, lying as if laying down, not lying in the other ways. But, like, just the words "lying on the night" is kind of weird. If you hear that on its own, you're like, what? But then beneath the dunes is where I lie to block the sun. So you can imagine, like, you're roasting in the sun and you find the one tiny shady spot on the far side of a dune to just get some relief from, like, constant death from above of the sun.
Yeah, it really paints a vivid picture.
Yeah.
Trying to ignite some sort of passion from inside to overcome this feeling of desertion can't be worse than never having anyone.
And that's kind of where it comes back to being a relationship song. That's kind of where you break the metaphor a little bit on purpose, a little bit, kind of break the dream, because...
But we also have the lyrics later where it says that he's brought down by his pride, which could mean, you know, his like lion group, or,
right.
you know, is it his own, you know, pride in not in the literal, not in the metaphorical.
Right.
And then we get to the chorus. So I'll ask one thing, just one thing of you. Don't ever turn me loose, even when I turn my back. Verse 2. A lion on his side, was it the lying or his pride which brought him down? Once the king of beasts, but now they feast on the thoughts beneath his vacant crown. Trying to decide, was it the lying or the pride which brought it down? To be alone, to be dethroned, believe me, I know all about it now.
So this part is interesting in terms of a lot of the rest of the album, where so much of the album feels like being a breakup album. This feels like the most penitent of having really had a part in the breakup. You know what I mean? Especially in a song like If You Believe Me, which we haven't done yet. But when you hear the bass, and maybe when we dig deep into If You Believe Me, I'll find it's about something different than what I initially think. But it seems to be like, believe me, I love you, I didn't do the things you think I did, or we should stay together, believe me that us not breaking up is what we need to do. You know what I mean? But then here he's like saying there was lying and there was pride. So it feels like the most like saying like, you know, something happened and I'm at fault here. Or
this
I
is
have
the most
fault.
taking the blame, like the
Right.
most like stepping up and accepting the wrongs and being like, I was wrong, I messed up.
When I'm focused too much on a song, I often have trouble like properly pulling out what other song I'm thinking of. But there's one on here, and I'm a bad fan, I just can't think of it, where it's like it was kind of like he was blaming her friends, like they have no idea what you'll lose. Is it Over It? I think it might be Over It. Yeah, I just Googled it and it's Over It. Yeah. So like in a song like Over It, there's a moment where there's fingers being pointed at the friends of the person of the girl. And then, but this is like the most finger pointing at the self of what happened in this desertion and breakup. And
Which is why I always say that this is like, to me, this album is a rock opera in that it is going through all those like stages of grief after a breakup, is because you're in the anger stage right here, clearly.
Right.
But it's anger at the self. It's not anger pointed towards anyone on the outside. It's definitely like, I'm so mad, like, I messed this thing up. Like, I take the fault.
Right. And the thing is, in real life, a relationship becomes complicated and it can be difficult when something ends and you can point fingers and blame. Not just relationships, but all kinds of things that end badly. You can point fingers and figure out who's to blame. And ultimately, you usually discover that everyone's to blame. You know, everyone has a piece of it. And there might be someone that's more to blame or something. But the process is you go through and you start to figure out. And so this album is like that process. It's like each song is kind of examining different elements of the crumbling of a relationship and figuring out who's to blame. Is it about blame? Like every possible way. It's a lot different than, say, an incel band, pop punk band who writes a song about this girl doesn't love me, what the hell's wrong with her, you know what I mean? Where those kind of bands write those kind of like poppy pop punk songs, those whiny pop punk songs, and the theme Homegrown, which I went on the Zeitgeist Lab podcast and I talked about the band Homegrown. I'm like, every one of their lovelorn songs blames the girl. Blames the girl, blames the girl, blames the girl. And then they'll sometimes write a song that's from the point of view of getting broken up with, and they blame the girl, and it's like, but then they'll break up with the girl in a song, and it's like, well, I'm breaking up with you because you're so crazy and stuff, you know what I mean? So that's the immaturity of 90s pop punk. What we have here is the maturity of adult contemporary pop rock.
Yes. Yeah, and when I say acceptance, I don't mean acceptance that the relationship is over, because clearly that's not what we're getting here, since it has the lines of "don't ever turn me loose, even when I turn my back."
Right.
So it's just acceptance of fault, that there is fault on yourself, that you should be held accountable, and maybe even being too hard on yourself, whether you deserve to be too hard on yourself or not is another story. But we all go through that, where it's like, what did I do? I did something wrong. I was an ass. Please, forgive me. It's on me. I get it. Don't turn me loose. Even when I turn my back, I'm just so mad right now. I'm mad at me. I'm mad at you. I'm mad at the situation.
Right. Yeah.
Bridge. I never told you then that I'd be easy to love. Supposedly I'm a man, but I felt like a cub. I wandered into the plains further and farther away, not ever knowing that I'd never come back the same. As my organs gave way, I swear I felt something burst. It's been 13 days and I'm dying of thirst.
That's the line right there.
For the birds I pray that someone else will get here first. I'm not alone, I'll be all right. Just take these bones and bring them back to life.
So, there's I don't know if this is accurate to the truth of the people involved, but I'm just saying what I end up picturing from these lines is these lyrics, especially, this ties back to when we did At Least We Made It This Far, and I had what I think is an epiphany that a couple of the songs on Bird and the B-Sides, the Nashville, Tennessee EP section, I think were songs in development for this album. Specifically, Where Do I Go From Here? When we did that song, the lyrics are so abstract in that song, more abstract than most other Relient K songs, that in that episode we literally we couldn't figure out what the song was about. Then when we did At Least We Made It This Far, I had an epiphany that I'm like, wait, that song, I think, is about the relationship from Forget Not Slow Down right before they broke up. At least we made it this far. And because a lot of that song is about him being on tour and looking forward to coming back to her. So then I feel like this is the dark side of the coin. This is the Harvey Dent Two-Face coin, the side that's scratched up. I'm wondering if the desert is imagery to going out on tour and being away, and that cause of friction of not being together that leads to breakup and stuff.
It's interesting that they use that he uses the desert imagery here, and then in Where Do I Go From Here, it's I'm so tired of the cold, baby. I don't like the snow.
Yes, I'm so tired of the cold. I'm tired of the snow, and calling her on the phone.
Or I'm so tired of the snow, I don't like the cold. Either way, you have more winter imagery versus you have this very stark, hot imagery in this song.
He's out there in the world without her when they're still technically together, and he's cold. But now that they're not together and he's still out there, he's lost and he's burning to death, he's in hell. I don't know if these were deliberate constructs in the way these songs were conceived, but they're interesting to kind of make these connections now.
And then we go back to the chorus. So I'll ask one thing, just one thing of you, don't ever turn me loose. So I'll ask one thing, just one thing of you, don't ever turn me loose, even when I turn my back.
Yeah. So, yeah, I feel bad for the lion, even though I said it's not a real lion. It's like a nature documentary where you're like, oh no. I saw this meme that was really funny where it's it's one of those meme formats where it's the guy smiling in one frame and he looks disappointed or upset in the second frame. And the first frame where he's smiling, it says, when a deer gets eaten in a lion documentary. And then the second one where he looks upset is this, when a deer gets eaten in a deer documentary. Did you get it? Did I explain that correctly?
Yes, I get it. I like to just stay away from all nature documentaries because I know there's going to be upsetting stuff.
What was that nature-related thing that we... Oh, it was one of those help you sleep, Headspace.
It was the Headspace, which great app, not sponsored by Headspace at all, but
We should be.
yeah, you should, since this is
Sadie
our therapy.
Headspace pod.
Headspace is a great app. I've been using it for a couple years now, and if you just want to check them out, they have 2 different
Promo
Netflix
code
series.
Sadie Hawkins Pod.
They have 2 different Netflix series. I think that the sleep one is really helpful because they give you sleep tips, and then they have little exercises that you can do. So they have this thing called the Wake Up, where every morning they give you a thing, like John Legend on certain days teaches you about music and how music affects your brain and things like that, and it's a lot of fun. And so they have different ones like that, like how to take care of your houseplants and things like that. And so they have ones where it's a nature thing to teach you about permanence. And so, which of course, impermanence is somebody with a lot of anxiety. It's definitely something that I should be listening to, but they tie it to nature. And so sometimes it does actually give me anxiety instead of soothing me. Even though the narrator's voice is lovely, he has that very lovely nature man voice.
But I was listening to it with her and she was getting anxious. I'm like, nothing's gonna die in the Headspace thing. Like, they might hint that it's a possibility, but nothing is gonna specifically die in the little story.
They actually did show rotting salmon in one of them once, because they were
that's
talking
food.
about
that's
like
food, not friends.
they were talking about the life course of a salmon and like how interesting their journey is, and so they did show their full life cycle.
Okay.
And then the one that I was watching was not actually, it was not about impermanence. It was a different one. It was about like otters and baby otters, and it was very cute. And I don't remember what the lesson was, but
I think
was
the baby
still
otter
nervous.
one might have been the one I heard with you.
Yeah, that's the one you
It
heard
was.
with
I'm
me,
like,
yeah.
there's no way they're gonna. That's it.
That was the
because I
one,
said
yeah.
you were getting upset, and I'm like, honey, there's no way they're killing the baby otter. The metaphorical,
But I
like,
had already
narrated baby
been
otter.
burned by the salmon one, so I was like,
Yeah, but did they connect you
nervous.
to the cuteness of the salmon before they killed it?
I mean, they showed you them hatching and everything.
Well, then what do I know? What am I talking about? Salmon is delicious. I 2 years ago, I realized salmon's my favorite food. Except now I'm trying to be vegan and I am not succeeding, but doing a little better at being vegetarian. But still, pescatarian. I want to be pescatarian because salmon's my favorite food. Salmon skin sushi. It's weird, but there are these like chips because on the 5 Iron Frenzy Facebook group, it's a very common thing if you find any kind of like gross food, not just like sloppy like mounds of random crap, but like something that's meant as a delicacy for someone, but it seems like a bad, gross idea. And a company came out with like salmon skin pork rinds.
Ew.
And I was like, that's even a little too much for me. Although I definitely would try it.
Of course you would. It's gross. He always orders that. And he's like, do you want one? And I'm like, no, thank you. Because I've tried one before and I'm not a fan.
So let's go to our break, sponsored by Headspace and salmon skin pork rinds. We'll be right back.
If you enjoy Sadie Hawkins Pod, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and interact with the show by calling our voicemail line, 402-95-SADIE.
You can send an email to sadiehawkinspod@gmail.com and visit our Instagram and Twitter, which are both at sadiehawkinspod.
You can also visit sadiehawkinspod.com for the link to our TeePublic store for shirts, mugs, and stickers, including 2 brand new designs. Following in the history of all of Relient K's logo parody merch, we have a Chick-fil-A parody design.
And to prove to everyone that we are in fact the most punk rock podcast, we have a new Black Flag logo parody. You know, something that's original and that we could really call our own for once.
We also want to thank our patrons over at patreon.com/SadieHawkinsPod.
There's JR, Jarrett, Eric, Joel, Connor, Michael, Helen, Samantha, Roxanne, Jimmy Eat Pod, This Might Be a Podcast, Tucker, David, and Brady. You can sign up at our Patreon for bonus episodes, which include us reviewing the songs from K is for Karaoke and reading through the Complex Infrastructure book.
Ooh.
Treat yourself right in 2021 with Sadie Hawkins Pod, the door to a happy, healthy life.
So you like Relient K, do you? Well, what about They Might Be Giants? My name is Greg Simpson, and I host a They Might Be Giants fan podcast, and it's called This Might Be a Podcast. This Might Be a Podcast is a song-by-song podcast featuring a different guest every episode from normal fans like you and I, but also I've had guests such as John Darnielle of the Mountain Goats, Justin McElroy of My Brother and Me, Hutch Harris of the Thermals, Mike Park of Asian Man Records, Franz Nikolai of the Hold Steady, and Danny Weinkoff and Marty Beller of They Might Be Giants, and past drummers Dan Hickey and Brian Doherty. Search for Punk News or This Might Be a Podcast on any podcast platform and you will find us. This Might Be a Podcast, brought to you by punknews.org.
So we're going to go out of order from our usual order this week. We're going to come back from the break and go directly into my segment, and we'll end on Jessica's segment because, as I said, there's really nothing this week in the YouTube deep dive. There was nothing on Bandcamp. There was nothing on SoundCloud. And there was just a few things on YouTube, so we'll do those real quick. We do luckily have from Joel, who lives in New Zealand. He sent us two rave DJs, so I have to break out the laptop because rave DJs are really hard to play directly from the Rave DJ app on the phone. So this is...
Yeah, listen to those mouse clicks.
I know. Remember these? These are from the early in the podcast. Back in like the first 50 episodes, you used to hear this a lot. So let me see. I've already lost... Okay. So this is Joel's mashup with Sahara and Sunrise by Our Last Night. And so a reminder to anyone, because we don't talk about Rave DJ all the time, we bring it up once in a while, but it's AI-generated mashups. You type in two songs that are available on YouTube or Spotify, and an AI analyzes the beats and tries to make a mashup. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah, that was, like I said, that was with Sunrise, the song Sunrise by the band Our Last Night. And then this one is the last one here of these. It's the song Monster by the band Skillet, matched up with Sahara.
Nice. Yeah, that one was great.
That sounds really good. That's
really
the most
does.
I've ever enjoyed Skillet in my life. I'm not a Skillet fan. I've seen them live at Soulfest before, but...
and we got a little bit of the Nightcore version of this song in there.
I meant to make that myself and I forgot. But I love the video because in this, if you pick the official music video, Rave DJ will also, it'll notice if you picked like a upload, like an official upload with no motion in the video, and it won't bother trying to show it. But if it figures out you uploaded the official music video, it'll try to mash up the visuals as well. So we've only got the visuals of the Monster by Skillet music video,
pretty funny.
and it's pretty funny. It's
Yeah.
it's like a science fiction film, but it's like in a CW way.
Guy like ripping out of his band-aids.
But then underneath he's just like an Abercrombie model or whatever. I'm too pretty. What have you done to me? It's like that Twilight Zone episode. Signe Blandford. Because this barely ever comes up anymore. Here's Signe Blandford's cover. Which, to remind everyone, is not a real cover. It's just like stock music uploaded as a fake lyric video for all kinds of unrelated pop songs. That's it. And then real quick, let's see. Yeah, I'm not even going to play these covers because they just don't sound good or anything. And,
we don't usually get Signe Blandford. We usually get, not Aisha Taylor, not Ksenia Solo. What is the name that we usually get?
No, that channel got deleted, remember?
Oh, that's right.
I can't remember her name anymore. And we say her as if it's not just a bot that uploads these, like, videos that have nothing to do with anything.
We don't know the bot's pronouns. It's terrible of us.
I know. You know what? We went so out of order that I'm supposed to start with Relient K footage and then go to covers and fan
Yeah, you
stuff.
really threw me, but I was like, all right, we're switching it up. I'm here for it.
We are switching it up.
Oh, no. No.
So,
No.
this next one is uploaded by Ninja Films, Natalie L. on YouTube. Uploaded what is essentially a sort of interpretive dance or interpretive performance, because it's one real low-res camera, back in 2009, so the album is brand new. New Year's Eve 2009 of all times.
What is she laying in? Are those French fries? I thought it was pills.
Wearing her 2009 sort of alty-esque clothes and laying in what I guess are supposed to be organs, but it's like ribbons. I think they're ribbons representing the organs or the brains that are coming out of the character. And then she gets up and just starts lip syncing directly to the video. Somebody's holding the video camera, and she's just deeply lip syncing everything. Grabbing her, holding her hands to her heart and holding fist to the sky, and her hair is across her eye in a very emo-esque way. I hate calling people emo if they're just vaguely emo-esque, because really they were just wearing a sort of fashion of the time. It's not fair to call someone emo if they weren't.
Hey, she might be like, no, I'm an emo girl.
You know what? You're right. I might be doing her a disservice.
She
not
may
calling her
self-identify as an emo, Danny.
By the way, the house is definitely Grandma's house. It's the most allergen-infested looking couch you've ever seen.
Oh, there's some stuffed animals. Everywhere. She's playing with the fake organs again. Oh, it's a lion stuffed animal. Oh my gosh, is she gonna rip the head off?
Is she gonna decrown it? So it's fun. It goes about like this towards the end. I feel like she really had more ideas of how to fill the space and the time in the first minute of the song, and didn't really think out how she was going to fill the time towards the end. Like, it needed some extra special kind of movement or stuff, because it's just a lot of the same movements for the last 2 minutes. Whereas when she's getting up from the ground, she should have gotten back on the ground or something. Whatever. So there's that. So let's
Good job, Ninja Films.
Great job, also known as Natalie L. So there's only a Final Fantasy AMV and a Inuyasha AMV. I also found a different AMV, which turned out to be a song with the same name by the, band Nightwish. Have you ever heard of Nightwish?
I have not heard
I've heard of Nightwish. It is sort of like... That's not it. Here you go. It's symphonic metal. I believe it's called symphonic metal.
This just sounds like anime music.
It does. There's a lot of symphonic metal in anime scores, but this is Nightwish, and it's actually like a very safe metal kind of band, you know what I mean? And there's that. I don't know what else to say about that. So we'll go back to Relient K footage, and then we'll get to your deep dive. So, yeah, the Schneck tweet heard around the world. And this was, of course, played on the 2016 live album.
Do you know what? We totally glazed over it, and we jumped right to break. We did not talk about the hidden track.
I kept thinking about that. I kept thinking about it and be like, can't forget to mention the hidden track.
Yep.
So let's get back to...
Real quick, before we get into 2015 live.
Mm-hmm. 2016 live.
Sorry, 2016.
So, this album has a pre-gap track, which we've talked about on anytime it had to come up. But pre-gap tracks are when you put a CD into the correct kind of CD player. It won't work in any CD player. But you put a CD in a CD player and you hit the rewind button, not the track back button. Well, it could be the track back button. It's a very complicated process, even back in the days of CDs. But you put a CD in your CD player, you hit the rewind button before the CD even starts, and you actually go to like negative seconds before the first track, and there's a little track hidden there. But it wouldn't work on every CD player. You know what I mean? Like, I had one specific Sony Discman that it would work on, but it wouldn't work on my boombox. I didn't know how to make it work on my computer. And so it's funny, like, not only is there a pre-gap track in 2009, pretty interesting because MP3s have completely taken over, as was, prophesized in Vinyl Countdown. But then they have a pre-gap track in 2016 on Air for Free as well. Still, here's the pre-gap track to Forget Not Slow Down.
A lion on his side, was it the lying or his pride which brought him down? Once the king of beasts, but now they feast on the thoughts beneath his vacant crown.
The next station is Concord B. Concord B as in Bravo.
Concourse.
Condor?
Concourse.
Whatever.
Talented family, those Teesons.
Yes. So there's this pre-gap track, and it'd be great if they release like a special edition of Forget Not Slow Down with that track, like, it'd be able to be heard.
Yeah.
Because I have it on my phone because I found a torrent where someone basically put together their own special edition of the whole CD, where they like basically got the pre-gap track, all the, like, the hidden stuff, and they condensed the. Sorry, I'm downloading torrents of Relient K songs when we're your official source of Relient K review.
We're not official. We are not officially endorsed by Relient K.
No, we're not. We're not at all. But anyway, that's the reason I have it on my phone, is because I download off a torrent. I guess you could hear it on YouTube. My point is, I hope if they do a Forget Not Slow Down anniversary tour, they release a special edition of the album where they take this pre-gap track and make it listenable on streaming. They did that with the pre-gap track of They put it on 20, called
10?
the song. I do that all the time. For some reason, I'm constantly adding an extra 10 years to, like, things all the time. I made a joke on Twitter from our account where I referenced Forget Not Slow Down being 20 years old, and then I figured it out and deleted it before anybody said anything and reposted it. And there's something about the fact that we're in the 20s,
right,
that throws me off in terms of numbers. It's a classic Danny swapping out nouns, just like can't figure out, and just whatever. So, yeah, Matt Thiessen's dad sings that version of the song. It's interesting. I wonder if thematically, if there was a choice there thematically, I wonder if it was just a cool thing they decided to do to get dad involved in the album. Like, I know the painting on the cover of the album is by Matt's uncle. If it just wanted to be like a family thing, or is there like a deeper meaning to it being his father singing a short version of that? Because especially like the reference to thought I was a man, but I was a cub. You know what I mean? To have your father singing lines from a song that's about you realizing you weren't adult enough to handle a certain situation and blaming yourself for it.
I don't know. It's a good question.
Especially after I just hinted at them. My parents gave me emotional trauma, which they didn't like act out to do. They didn't be like, Danny, you know, they didn't do like, Danny, come over here and we're gonna yell at you. They were just trying to be the best parents they could be, but there were certain things I needed and they didn't help me with them and stuff like that. I had to grow up all on my own on the streets. Me and the boys, we'd figure out how life worked on our own. I had lots of street smarts growing up in Burlington, Massachusetts.
You did. You were taking the bus into downtown Boston at like age 12.
What was I? 1997.
Good Lord.
So what's 13? I was 13 years old when I could go, not to Boston, but to Cambridge. I could take the bus to the subway, and I could go to the record stores in Cambridge by myself. At 13 years old. No one was gonna... First of all, nobody wanted this chubby little curly-haired kid, and even if they could, there was no way they'd be able to pick him up.
Oh, Danny.
I was able to go to the mall and ride my bike to the video store before any of my friends. And actually, I think I helped my friends be able to do that a little earlier because they were like, well, Danny...
You could never do that with kids these days, ever.
No, I mean, I definitely had...
I wasn't allowed to do any of that stuff.
I definitely had the Spielbergian bicycle life that, you know, kids, you know...
You're at that, like, the end of that generation,
time, yeah.
And then I'm in that, like, next generation of, like, way, like, overprotective parents.
Right.
Like, you taught stranger danger from, like, the moment you come out of the womb.
Oh my gosh, you know what I just realized is, like, the best idea? It's like, I just thought of something, like, we don't have kids just riding around their towns on bikes anymore. All the interdimensional clowns are going to go around unchecked from now on. And that's how you make, like, that's how you got to make, like, a Spielbergian style adventure / horror movie nowadays. You like how you make an It Part 3. You got to say, like, you know, the kids aren't allowed on the streets and all of these monsters and all of these mysteries are going unsolved, and it's like we got to let our kids out and they got to figure out these things. That's how you do Stranger Things set in 2020.
So you have the live version, Dan.
Yes. So now that we heard the Matt Thiessen's father version, let's hear the live album. This is from the 2016 portion of the live album.
Trying to ignite some sort of passion from inside to overcome. This feeling of desertion can't be worse than never having anyone. If you guys know it, help me sing it. So I'll ask one thing, just one thing of you. Don't ever turn me loose, even when I turn my back.
I just want to say, I didn't say it earlier, I love the guitars in this song. That
Okay.
wow, wow, I love that so much.
You know what's funny is I don't hear this thing. So all throughout the years between Forget Not Slow Down and Collapsible Lung, when they would play this song live, someone would come out on stage and hit, like, I'm sure it wasn't a cowbell, but it was a cowbell-like thing. And here in 2016, they didn't bother doing that anymore. And I watched so many videos just to check the quality and also to look if there were any interesting stories before any videos, before any performances, and I didn't really find much. But I found this one that is undated from 2010, and it's basically, so Hoops was not on tour at the time, and Justin York had replaced him for the time being. And then Thiessen gives this whole explanation that there's like three, you know, that Justin York is the older brother of the other York from Paramore, And apparently there's a third York brother.
Oh, wow.
Who then comes out and does the cowbell part of the song in this live performance. Well, here it sounds more like a bell, but other videos it sounded more like a cowbell. Or they actually sounds like Coke bottles in this one.
A little bit, yeah.
Sounds more like glass or metallic. But yeah, someone would do this thing to the side of Ethan's drums all the time and go, "Dig-a-dig-dig, and then I guess they just stopped doing that after Ethan left the band. So we didn't even listen to much of the live album version, but it's on point. It's like it's one of the best live tracks on the album. For instance, I'm not like a huge fan of the Who I Am Hates Who I've Been performance on the live album. I just don't think Thiessen plays it vocally that powerfully. We talked about it in Who I Am Hates Who I've Been, but like something about this song even in 2016 just drew out the aggression along with the inherent aggression of the song. So the last thing, and then we'll go to your deep dive, is I found this one clip from the Manila Mall tour.
Nice.
But I said before I didn't find many good intros to the song. This was the only good intro to the song that I found. And it's Thiessen talking before they play this in front of a Uniqlo.
Say Relient K to anybody, they would always think she was saying Lion King.
I think that sometimes.
Yeah, Lion King. We're in the band Lion King. That actually means their band name, probably. Anyway,
I think that name might be taken.
Mufasa.
Yeah.
So it got cut off at the beginning, but I think they're saying that Hoops' kid thought their band was called Lion King.
That's cute.
And then they play it here in one of the Manila malls. And it's really blown out. A lot of live performances. The thing is, even though there's only 5 or 6 fan videos altogether, there's dozens of live performances of the song. There's so many, and they played the song a bunch. Everybody has a bad camera. Like, nobody had good cameras. Nobody had good audio.
Yeah.
Everybody's shaky. Everybody's far away.
Yeah.
Like, no, like, official good-looking footage. There's one bit of footage that's played from, like, 2009 or 10, early after this song existed. It looks great. You see Schneck doing, like, effects. He's doing the pedals. Schneck is there doing the pedal hoop stuff.
Nice.
I'm going to post that on social media, but it just sounds like the song, so there's no reason to play it on the show.
Yeah, this seems like it's probably a really fun song to play. Like,
Yeah.
they do play it live a lot. Like, and it did make it onto a live album that has a relatively short track listing.
Yeah, and from the most recent tour.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's about all there was for the song. Like I said, if YouTube and SoundCloud are any metric, I'm just surprised that it's not as big a song to everyone overall as I always thought it was.
Yeah. So I have an official Twitter post from the Relient K account from 2012. It says this is from January 28th, 2012. A big thanks to Aaron Gillespie for singing his part on Sahara last night.
Oh.
It's 28 likes and 26 retweets. Wow, that's a small margin in there. Wow.
I have to go find that tweet and retweet it from the Sadie Hawkins pod account right now.
I can send you the link when we're done.
Okay.
Then I have an incorrect lyric listing.
Okay.
So this is from daylyrics.com. And it says, home, Relient K, Sahara. Chris was no philosopher. He was an ordinary man, 24 and running out of room, a rifle and a pack, and a sack of rice on his back, guided by Tolstoy and the moon. Into the Yukon he would go, in search of a higher truth. Christopher would make a break with his world, but he never escaped his youth. Sahara will never be the south of France, obvious with the rising sun. If I had no home, I'd build one in the sand. If I didn't have a love, I'd find me one. If I didn't have a love, I'd find me one. 4 months alone in the ice and snow is a long way from Annandale. Locals and trappers and Eskimos knew better than to trust that trail at one with the earth he loved so well. A retreat from civilization, hunger, and emptiness took their toll.
These are just the words, aren't they? I'm just
Chris McAnlis passed us by. And then there's a video for Eddie
Like a
from
Lion.
Ohio looking out the fishbowl.
In Like a Lion is another cat song
Yes.
by Relient K.
That was the one I could not think of earlier. That was it. I was sitting here and I was like, oh, I got to bring up the truth and in Like a Lion, and like that's part of the
Well, the truth
cat
is like
suite.
the truth doesn't. We never even knew the truth was about the Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. So that's like
It counts because it's about a lion.
It counts, but it's like twice removed from the idea of being a cat related thing.
So yeah, I don't know what this song is. More lyrics of Relient K. Where do I go from here? Let's see if that's correct. Nope. Well, I came from Alabama with a banjo on my knee. I'm going to Louisiana, my true love for to see.
That sounds true.
Don't you cry for me.
Oh,
Wow, I
Sahara.
had no
Oh, don't you cry
idea
for me.
Relient K wrote that song. And they have their YouTube link is Alan Jackson Like a Red Rose. Where do I go from here?
This website just sounds like a mess. What site is this?
Daylyrics.com.
It just sounds like a mess. Maybe like no one like checked things as they got like uploaded and
The
stuff.
lining is silver is correct though.
Yeah, I'm not saying that they wouldn't have some. A broken clock is right twice a day. But it sounds like maybe just the website became a mess. Like, probably was dependent on people submitting stuff, and maybe people submitted things to the wrong stuff, and like it got uploaded wrong.
So I guess there's a song out there about, I think, the guy from Into the Wild. Maybe that's what it sounded like. So
Okay.
then I have a review from indievisionmusic.com.
Mm-hmm.
It's from October 6th, 2009. Reviewer Tyler Mills.
That's, in the past I joked how Jesus Freak Hideout is kind of like the punk news of the Christian world, but really Indie Vision Music and Decapalists are more like specifically Christian sites geared towards punk and alternative. So they're more of the punk news of Christian music.
Introduction. The first album I ever purchased was a Relient K CD. The purchase made me mad because buying it off eBay, it skipped every time I played it. My friend tried to convince me that track 13 on Two Lefts wasn't important, but he simply didn't understand. Every track on that album was important to me. I loved it that much. I had owned other albums before that, but I had never purchased an album with my hard-earned money. I received them through gifts and family. Ever since then, I have liked everything Relient K has put out with varying degrees. There have been albums that have been worse than others, but in general, their material has been solid. This is pre-collapsible lung. I have also seen an amazing amount of growth throughout their discography. Since all work and no play, Relient K has changed quite a bit. Reviewer. I want to get something out of the way. Forget Not Slow Down is just as good as It is not worse. It is not better. I want to be clear about something else. This album doesn't sound like Forget Not Slow Down is a perfect example of Relient K's ability to mature without losing their core audience, the whole time drawing in new fans. I don't know how they do it, but they do. If I had to put Forget Not Slow Down into a genre, I'd say it falls into a folk piano punk genre. As ridiculous as it may sound, it's the perfect way to describe the music.
It's not a perfect way, but okay.
It's a difficult concept to
works for
explain.
you.
Needless to say, this album isn't like any other Relient K album before it. Forget Not Slow Down serves as a record about relationships, real life, and religion, subjects that Matt Thiessen handles quite well. Without going into full-blown analysis of each track, each song on this album has its place. The songs dealing with relationships never become cliche and always have significant messages behind them. I Don't Need a Soul is a satirical song discussing the issue of putting romantic relationships before one's spiritual life. But I don't need a soul, no, I don't need a soul to hold.
Not.
Without you, I'm still whole, you and life remain beautiful.
No, it's not. I mean, I guess that could be a way you could interpret it when you listen to it, but that's not what that song's about.
It's one interpretation. There are numerous songs on the album that will quickly become fan favorites. Songs like Part of It and If You Believe Me, Therapy, and the title track have a distinctive Relient K sound, sounding like any old material. Songs like Sahara with Tim Skipper, House of Heroes, Aaron Gillespie, Under Oath, and The Almost, and Matt McDonald, The Classic Crime, will give listeners the chills with a combination of vocal melodies and amazing metaphorical lyrics that have made it one of my favorite songs of all time. The lion on its side wasn't lying or his pride which brought him down. Once the king of beasts, but now they feast on the thoughts beneath his vacant crown. Candlelight and Over It are some of the more mellow songs on the album, yet never become boring with multiple listens. The intros and outros serve
a
as
mellow song that's not boring? How is that possible?
serve as perfect transition pieces. Without the intro to Savannah, the transition between it and Sahara would be quite jarring, yet it is executed perfectly. By the time the closing tracks are over, you get the feeling that you've traveled somewhere, allowing the music to carry you. I believe that may be the feeling Relient K wanted to get across with the album artwork and the music itself, and I have absolutely no problem with that. Overall, Forget Not Slow Down has a folk punk feel, giving it a very distinctive sound.
You're getting at the end, so I can just finish up.
Which, coupled with the lyrical genius of Matt Thiessen, make it one of the best albums of the year and Relient K's career.
Okay, I got a little bee in my bonnet when they said folk at the beginning, and then they said it again. So I was like, wait, I figured it out. There's nothing folk about this album at all. I think they're miscategorizing the sort of roomy, organic sound of the album. The fact that it sounds like music played, in a cabin. I mean, we know the context of it being written in a cabin, but I'm saying the album has a very organic, roomy sound.
It was recorded in a cabin.
It was recorded in the cabin as well. I think I've just forgotten that.
A different cabin.
A different cabin. Okay, sorry, I forgot that. But I think there's nothing folk about it. It's a rock album. It's just a rock album. There's no folk. I'm not even saying folk has to be acoustic, but there's no acoustic songs on the album, right? I don't think so. If there are, they're only parts. It's not folk. That's not what folk is. I just think they're attributing the organic sound of the album to folkiness. And that's just a misnomer. Now I know words like misnomer.
Now we have a review from Medium.com. This review is from Paul Huff from February 7th, 2017. Oh, and it lets me know that it's a 4-minute read.
Okay, good.
Relient K is undeniably one of the most successful acts to come out of the contemporary Christian rock scene. After gaining a following with their early Christian punk albums, they hit the mainstream with 2004's and 2007's 57 Years Ago. Yet in 2009, the group released a lesser-known album called Forget Not Slow Down, which I think contains their most mature and consistent songwriting to date. At first listen, Forget Not Slow Down sounds like a hodgepodge of relationship theme songs, some positive, some melancholy, some angry, some that are self-reflective, and others that are clearly other-oriented. Paradoxically, many of the tracks are interconnected, forming intros and outros to other songs, akin to a kind of concept album. This is no coincidence, as Forget Not Slow Down has a very subtle central theme, the breakdown of a serious romance. To fully understand this album, it helps to know the background of lead singer Matt Thiessen, and I'm going to skip over this because we know. While some critics have analyzed the lyrics for evidence of, I'm going to skip over this part too, it's hearsay. Interesting for its psychological content, that is. A person going through the stages of grief following a lost relationship. The title track opens the album with a driving upbeat rock melody, yet the lyrics paint an angst-ridden portrait of a person trying to escape despair. I'd rather forget and not slow down than gather regret for the things I can't change now. If I become what I can't accept, resurrect the saint from within a wretch. The second track, called I Don't Need a Soul, takes place on a hospital deathbed and serves as an allegory for the inevitability of a breakup.
Did it?
Not really. The tone, not at all, actually. The tone of the song remains...
That's where we are with this review.
Yep.
Like the last one,
This
like
isn't Deathbed.
no, the last one saying like folk album, it's folk, or saying I don't need a soul is about whatever, and they were wrong. That's fine. But like, I feel like this review is a little iffier. Has it been 4 minutes yet?
The tone of the song remains bright and self-assured as the narrator attempts to distance himself from the heartbreak. The folksy tracks Candlelight and Flare create a sort of flashback into the relationship, recounting the adoration the narrator had for his lost love and how lucky he was to have her in his life.
I have less of a problem with the word folksy, because that's like a quality. And I can accept that there might be a folksy quality to the album because it can come from any aspect. So it might be, picking straws or whatever, if that's the right idiom. But it's what's the word? It might be
nitpicking.
It might be
or grasping at straws.
It might be whatever to criticize the last reviewer for calling it folk, and I think that's flat out wrong. But I have less of a problem with the word folksy.
Returning to present, the more aggressive part of it displays bitterness and remorse that the relationship had to end, along with the realization that life goes on. The contemplative folk rock flavored Therapy comprises the core of the album, describing solitude
folky.
as a way of coping with brokenness. I never thought I'd need all this time alone. It goes to show I had so much, yet I had need for nothing but you. It's no wonder that this was the first song Thiessen wrote during his 3-month seclusion. Over It features a slowed down progressive pop styling, continuing the themes of soul searching and making sense of the past. The band suddenly switches gears with the angst-filled punk rock homage Sahara, which is laden with metaphors and wordplay that circle around feelings of guilt and a fall from grace. After an ethereal transition oasis, the album enters an ostensible dream sequence in the light, gleeful song Savannah. The narrator recalls the seeming perfection of being in love. Everything makes sense when you're with me. This is abruptly succeeded by an apocalyptic post-breakup reprise in Baby. Themes of bargaining, regret, and reconciliation show up in the song If You Believe Me as the narrator yearns for redemption with his ex. Matt Thiessen closes the album with the brooding yet powerful climax, This Is the End. And at this point, the narrator has finally accepted the fact that the relationship is over. I can't keep a straight face and say this is not the end. Not if you want it, it's upon us. And I want to say it's sinking in. Roiling guitars cool to a simmer in the poignant coda, If You Want It. Condensed within the final verses is an epiphany of self-affirmation. I've been convincing myself that I'm worthwhile because I'm worth what I'll convince myself to be. In this way, the narrator describes how anguish, guilt, and longing give way to a promise of restoration and healing. Aside from its context and emotional themes, Forgetting Not Slow Down is remarkable for its diverse organic musicianship. For the first time in the band's history, Relient K decided to forego using MIDI and software instruments, giving the LP a stripped-down indie feel. The album manages to seamlessly blend elements of alt-rock and pop-punk with some sprinkles of folk. Thiessen's verbose, and I can hear the folkiness, Danny.
Okay.
Thiessen's verbose and witty lyricism remains the one constant from Relient K's early days. I would strongly recommend this collection to any fan of rock. The album's core themes will hit home for anyone who's gone through a tough breakup or lost a friend whom they still respect. Yet the messages of reflection and hope make Forgetting Not Slow Down accessible for everyone else. Originally written in August 2011. Anybody who listens to this podcast on like 1.5 or 2 speed, like, I wonder how I sound when I read through these reviews.
We should just start uploading the podcast in a native, like, 1.5 speed.
And then, to close us out, we have song meanings.
Jessica told me about this a little bit during our break, and I was like, we're ending with that. That's especially why I did my segment first.
So the very first comment is, well, first of all, they correct the lyrics and then go into this very long diatribe of something Danny just loves, which is where we're saying this I believe we're trying to say that this is completely about God and not at all about a girl.
Now, that's hilarious. Flat out funny, because I got spicy about it with Be My Escape, but I know that song's about God. If you listen to our Be My Escape episodes, I don't act like I know it's about God, but I do know it's about God. But really, I just want it to be left open so everyone can interpret it how they want it, because I feel like that song was written in a way specifically where it can be about anything. I think some songs are written to specifically be about specific things, and other songs are written to specifically be open to more interpretations. I think the songs on Forget Not to Slow Down are closed. Like, the kitchen is closed on the songs of Forget Not to Slow Down. We know there's so much firsthand information about this album. We know what it's about. So it's unlike Five Score, where they're in this gray area between their ministry days and their mainstream, festival rock days. Unlike that time where some of the songs are about God, some of them aren't, people can debate it. Cool, debate, wonderful, discourse is fun. Forget Not to Slow Down is about a girl.
And I definitely think that if you want it to be about something else, if it makes it about something else to you, absolutely use that. If that helps you get through something, however you want to perceive art, that's how you should be allowed to perceive art. But maybe don't go on the internet and be like, this is 100% about this thing, when the information exists out there.
And try to close down everybody else.
Yeah, and try to close down everyone else when the information does exist out there of what it actually is
And
about.
the other thing is, Forget Not to Slow Down, with everything I just said, it's about a breakup of a relationship with a human. Jessica gave me the lower your voice thing.
Because it's 10:30 at night and we have neighbors, and earlier our upstairs neighbor was playing her music very loudly, and you may or may not be able to hear it in the background, so
everything I said before, just a moment ago, about what this album is about, it is still through the lens and flavored by Matt Thiessen's faith. That's the thing about any art, is that, you write about, not anything. That's a way it can go when you write poetry, when you write a song, when you write a story, that you have a specific thing you want to talk about, but it's all flavored by your experiences and your worldview. So yes, it's a Christian album. It's it's got that, but it's about a relationship. Let's hear it.
Here's what Imini on November 20th, 2009 had to say over on Song Meanings. So after they correct the lyrics, they say, now that the lyrics are right, here's what I think. First, others have said that Matt T writes songs in the form of a prayer. Matt T said that although they incorporate their faith into their songs, they don't want to be labeled as a Christian band, probably because that is a tight box to fit into. But now if you have listened to the whole of Forget Not Slow Down album, it is apparent that the whole thing is about pressing on, while not diminishing the fact that there is pain and hurt when you lose someone you care for deeply. But at the same time, there is ocean of God's greatness and love that surrounds us if we only open our eyes and recognize it.
Sure.
Matt T's friend and singer-songwriter John Foreman also wrote a song a while back called Gone, I think. In the outro, he says, life is more than girls. Relient K, unlike other bands who write songs about losing people you love, gives way to the fact that God is still there and his love never ends. If you are looking for love in the world, you most likely will not find it. At least the real love you won't.
All right.
I
was with him up until that moment. And there's a difference. I'm not familiar with that Switchfoot song. But there's a big difference between the idea of certain songs or certain media presenting the idea that only romance and relationships will give you happiness, because that's a wrong point of view even from a non-Christian point of view. If you are relying too much on another person for your happiness, too much that becomes codependence. That's not so John Foreman's absolutely correct. even if he wasn't a Christian, he would still be correct. Life is more than romance or sex or, leaving someone's hoodie in their car and collapsible.
If you are looking for love in the world, you will most likely not find it. At least the real love you won't. Is it possible to find in others? Yes, but God alone has the love which many of us long for, yet we turn away from him and try to fulfill the satisfaction of our own heart by looking for love in the world, friends, girls, etc.
Now, sorry, I know there's so much left in here. That's a very common Christian point of view. Or it's a very common, way of phrasing it. However, in my opinion, I think reasonably, God expresses his love, if you believe in God. God expresses his love to us through many forms, and one of them is through the love of the people he puts in our lives. So you find when on my wedding vows, I said to Jessica in front of all our witnesses, I want my love to you to be a reflection of God's love for you. So it's like this person's just flat out shutting down the idea that you can find love in people. I completely disagree, because not only can you find love in people and people love each other and there's love there, but if you really believe in God, that love becomes God's love. A friend's a friend forever when the Lord's the Lord of them. And a friend will not say never, though their welcome will not end.
Well said, Danny.
I wrote that.
The love which the world gives is empty. It won't fill your heart completely, maybe for a moment or two, but what's after that? Someone once said, I looked at God and the dove of peace flew into my heart. I looked at the dove of peace and it flew away. Someone else said that life is like a jigsaw puzzle. What does this have to do with the song we're talking about? And God is the big center puzzle piece. There's not necessarily a big center puzzle piece. Mostly puzzle pieces are like the same general size. One can connect the edge pieces, a few others, but without God in the center, none of the other pieces make sense. Life won't make sense without God in the center. The loving, vital, and personal relationship with God should be first above all. Secondly, the love between a man and a woman does exist. Oh, all right.
Backpedaling.
I think, well...
Oh, is he saying
I just think
only
it's
the love
harder,
between a man and a woman?
I just think it's harder and harder to see and find love where two people care about the other and other more than themselves and don't insist on their way, especially where in songs and society we are often misled into focusing on ourselves and our wants and our desires and our feelings and what love brings us instead of the other way around.
There's chestnuts of reasonable truth in an otherwise sort of like scattershot, thing that I just don't agree with.
We've been trained to think almost completely backwards. Now what I think the song means. Finally.
Sir, this is a Wendy's.
I never told you then that I'd be easy to love. I think in the bridge and the whole song that the you is referring to God.
Nope.
I never told God then that I'd be easy to love. I think for a moment Matt T may have been so down that he turned his back on God in some way. Matt said this to God because Matt knows that it is not easy to love someone that turns their backs on you. In Matt's case, it was a girl. In God's case, it was Matt who turned his back. I mean, maybe that is reasonable.
That's totally, and that is actually my thing about Be My Escape is I think we have to throw out our concepts of poetry being binary or singular, like the idea that there was only one interpretation, that the poet themselves might have meant 2, 3, 4, or 5 interpretations when they wrote it. Not just that they wrote one thing and you all have different interpretations and you all debate which is true, but that literally all of them are true at the same time. Yeah, like we all as a society need to start accepting that about poetry.
Because I can absolutely see how you would look at lines and how you can absolutely take the lines, don't ever turn me loose, even when I turn my back, to be like, please God, don't ever turn me loose, even when I turn my back on you, even when, you know, I can't have a personal relationship with you right now. Please just always be there.
Yeah.
Supposedly a man, but I feel like a cub. What is man? A fun-loving party guy with a six-pack? No. A man is one who knows his responsibility and accountability to God. A man is one who keeps God in the center of his life. It's apparent from Matt's song that he has a relationship with God. At least that's what
But
it
he said he's a
sounds like.
cub.
But he felt like a cub and had a desire to chase things. A girl, perhaps.
No! Well, that's literally not the truth of the song, of the situation.
I wandered into the plains.
A girl, some girl at a bar. This isn't collapsible lung yet. Some chick at a bar, and he was chasing her. He's like, "Hey, baby," and then she's like, "No, thanks." And then he goes out into the desert to die. This isn't some vapid love song. It's a song about deep personal heartbreak, and it can be through the lens of your faith and your feelings about Christ also not abandoning you in your time of need. Sure, but oh my gosh.
I have like 10 more paragraphs to get through here.
We're never going to get through it.
I wandered into the plains further and farther away. Wandered as a word I would relate to being lost. Maybe Matt wandered away chasing a girl, or maybe this wandering took place after he was dejected by this girl in order to get away. That's how he wrote this album, away from everything in solitude of the country.
The story of the album.
Further and farther away from
what?
From what or from whom?
You know, it's
God or the girl.
The benefit of the doubt that I could give this poster just went away because I'm like, well, maybe they don't know about the fact that he had been broken up with at the time by his fiance in planned marriage through Christ. Like, what do you want? It wasn't just some chick.
Not ever knowing that I'd never come back the same. As my organs gave way, I swear I felt something burst. Investing a lot of time, thought, care, and love in a person can hurt when it all burns down in the end, and it doesn't end the way it looked like it would. It's been 13 days, and now I'm dying of thirst. Maybe 13 days without a thought to God. Who knows where the lyrical wisdom of 13 days comes from? The real point, I think that's a literal Thiessen moment. I think he's like been in the cabin for 13 days, or it's been 13 days since the breakup or something like that.
Yeah. I don't think he picked 13 as a special symbol, like it's a QAnon post and there's special symbols in it.
The real point, I'm dying of thirst. Okay, John 4:13, Jesus answered and said to her, whoever drinks of this water will thirst again, but whoever drinks of the water that I shall give him will never thirst. But the water that I shall give him will become in him a fountain of water springing up into everlasting life. John 6:35, and Jesus said to them, I am the bread of life. He who comes to me shall never hunger, and he who believes in me shall never thirst. Matthew 5:6, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled.
I appreciate this poster putting the actual Bible quotes in there and not making us do the work like they do on Genius.
Well, we have 30 more to get through, so get ready. As for the birds of prey, I pray that someone else will get. For those who think Matt writes songs in the form of prayer, by his lyrical subtleties, he incorporates his faith into songs. As for the birds of prey, I think that this is a reference back to feeling like a cub chasing birds, which may look so good, and it might feel so right, but he prays someone else will get there first so he doesn't fall into the trap of becoming alive to the world and his desires and deaf to God. I think he's saying that the birds are like chasing skirts, like chasing ladies. Someone chasing after the cubs are chasing after the girls. Someone else will get here first. God is the only one who has the power to change a person. He needs God's help. But I am not alone. A realizes that there are many others with the same pain and hurts as he. B, he realizes that there are people around him who care for him besides just the girl. C, realizes the true friendship and comfort of the Holy Spirit of God. I know that sounds a little charismatic, but I'll save that argument for another time. Or D, all of the above. I'll be all right. Light at the
Jessica
end
made
of
a
the
face.
tunnel. Hope of a new day. Romans 5:5. New hope does not disappoint because the love of God has been poured out into our hearts by the Holy Spirit who has given to us. It's not the end. Take this experience and learn from it and move forward.
Yeah. This is like classic, like, what propaganda or like a dictator trying to get people up in a fervor, how that works. Like, you use little truths and then you bend it towards your viewpoint.
Just take these bones and breathe them back to life. Job 33:4. The Spirit of God has made me, and the breath of the Almighty gives me life. Breathe them back to life. Who? Only God has that power. It's now evident who Matt is talking to. He's talking to God. Is there a prayer? Is that a prayer? I don't know. Similar to the story of the prodigal son in the book of Matthew. Listen, folks, everyone ends up in one of two places. If you want the better, eternal life in heaven, you need to believe that Jesus Christ was the Son of the living God, that he came to this earth in the flesh and died on the cross, paying the price for your sins, that God raised him up from the dead on the third day. Many people say, yeah, I believe that, but just believing it won't get you anywhere unless there's truly a change of heart and ways and truly place your trust in him. Again, what does this have to do with the song we are currently talking about? Not only confessing that Jesus Christ is the Savior, the only one that can save you from sin, death, and hell, that he is the only way to heaven, not your works or anything you have done, but Christ alone is the way to the truth and the life. But also, 1, find a church so you might hear the preaching of the word and rejoice in the fellowship of other Christians. Is he trolling? Like, what is this? Is he just coming
He's
here?
just using this song as a place to
like, this is not your soapbox. Like, this song meaning is not your soapbox.
It's literal evangelizing, like, as if there's, like, heathens in the song meanings comments for this song. So he's using this chance to minister and try to get people saved and do, but this isn't really the place.
2, study the Bible, for that is where we learn of God and his plans. 3, pray to him to strengthen your faith and increase your love towards him. And 4, enjoy the blessings given by God in the heavenly ordained sacraments, baptism and the Lord's Supper. All of these will work to encourage and build upon your faith.
This really has nothing to do with the song.
There are 4 replies. Juaino, Juaio, on January 8th, 2010 said, I'm agnostic and listen to Relient K, and you're suggesting that I should find a church to go to. Honestly, I believe that if you believe there is a God, you don't have to read a book. Churches have spent decades reading when people could read it in their own time in weeks. I honestly believe church is just a meet and greet. I believe I don't have to go to church.
Well, there were
to go
hundreds
to heaven.
of years where people weren't allowed to read the Bible. So I guess just for those hundreds of years, they all just went to hell. Like, they had to go to church and only have the Bible read to them by the church, and their salvation came through the church. So just all those people, all those Christians until like the Protestant Reformation, they just all went to hell. How do millions of people from all those generations just went to hell?
Yeah, I don't ascribe to that, and I'm not going to get into it here. That same commenter also said, the lyrics are right, though. So apparently the guy just reposted the exact same lyrics. They were already correct on the song meanings. Pretty Rider on January 28th, 2010 said, Juaino, you're very right. You don't have to go to church to go to heaven. In fact, church can be a risky place to go. Many people rely on churches, retreats, and Bible studies to have a relationship with God. In other words, their relationship is of this world. However, church is a great way to A, have your questions answered and doubts dissolved, B, be in a fellowship with other Christians, and C, come to a safe place when you're in pain and in need. Also, the Bible can often be hard to interpret. Your pastor can often explain certain passages and make them applicable to your life. You are correct, however, when it comes down to it. God will be judging your heart, not your schedule. LB Guitarist on June 15th, 2015 said, Emily, you couldn't have put it any better. Well interpreted. I'm going to make a song meanings login just to go in and be like, this has nothing to do with the song. Also, you're wrong. You're literally wrong.
So two people kind of had a little conversation amongst themselves that didn't directly address them, and then a third person said that the song poster was correct.
Sort of.
Sort of.
If that's how you want to interpret the song meanings, people.
We should do song meanings.
Yes.
Let's create songmeaningsmeanings.com. Let's go on GoDaddy right now.
I'm just going to go in and play devil's advocate with all these commenters.
Ooh, well-chosen words. Devil's advocate.
May Duke01 on October 11th, 2009 said, I think it's about how he cheated on his fiancée, turned aside, and she cut him loose, and now he's asking God to never do the same because he stays with us and doesn't treat us as we deserve. It's pretty amazing. One of the focal points of Christianity is how Christ's love transcends human love. I can get perfectly on board with that.
Yeah.
That is a great song meaning.
Man, that's...
Then there's people who are just pointing out what the puns and the like different wordplay is.
Word meanings are, yeah.
Yeah. Simley01 on October 22nd, 2009 said, it is definitely about loneliness, but he is also wondering what got him there. The lying or the pride. He seems to be regretful of the things he's done that have caused his loneliness. Again, another great song meaning. Super appropriate
and very
to post
concise.
here. Yes. And I mean, there's like 2 pages of them.
Yeah, so good job finding that stuff. Very interesting. So how do you feel about this song? Do you like it more, the same, or less than before we started?
You know, I liked it more until we got to the song meanings, and now I'm just a broken human being.
So let's just say you liked it more. Let's put the song meanings behind us. To be honest, before we started the episode, I was angling towards liking it less. Doing my own research and finding that like there's, you know, this lack of community support behind the song other than like some people, you know, people on Twitter. And realizing
everybody
how
sings
violent
along live with it.
But also kind of realizing how depressing and violent the imagery in the song was,
Right.
and that really pushed me towards liking it less. But this whole conversation has actually kind of made me like it more again.
Yeah, the poetics.
Yeah.
I really like the poetics of it. I love all of the different wordplay in it. I think that it's really like Thiessen on his songwriting A game for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to sleep. I'll be lying on my side and trying to forget about that entire song meaning that you just read.
And not slow down on the podcast and quickly hurry on to the next episode. Yeah. This is Sadie Hawkins Pod reminding you that we are neither officially endorsed by Relient K or Headspace.
Or Salmon Chips.